Welcome back to Second Breakfast. Cam and I saw Barbie last week, and we loved it. Sometimes when I see a movie, I love it, and there's so many things that I could say that I love about it, but it doesn't mean I have a podcast's worth of things to say about it. I don't want to just to talk. But Cam, being Cam, of course, went home and feverishly wrote a bunch of notes about a crazy theory that he just had to get out. So this is going to be one of Cam's little column episodes. He'll be doing it solo, so if you're wondering where I am, I just didn't have much to say, but I did read Cam's column and I love it, and I totally buy what he's about to pitch to you. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Spoilers for Barbie and also 16th century poetry. I'll leave it at that. All right, enjoy.
Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach's Barbie is delightful, whip-smart, challenging, and relentlessly funny, full of lightning performances and rock-solid characterization. But beneath all that Mattel lore and glorious gender commentary, I found something else. In the tradition of underpainting, there seemed to be a broad strokes foundation etched beneath all the pink and plastic, a storytelling skeleton upon which everything else was built. To my delight, it was John Milton's Paradise Lost. Spoiler alert for both Barbie and Milton. As a Faustus-poisoned, Milton and Marlowe-loving literary theologian, I do see dialectical demons everywhere, and even if I do prefer Marlowe's work in this surprisingly broad subgenre, Milton's singular innovation was to write Satan as a thunderously, devastatingly human character. He is given by far the most nuance and depth of any character in Paradise Lost, transcending the archetypical characterization of his peers to reach agonizing heights of guilt, desire, insecurity, and pain. He is a fallen and failed angel, a crushingly self-aware character stuck inside a fantastical, dreamlike realm. Yes, I am saying that Ken is Satan, but more specifically, he is part of the long line of Miltonian sympathetic Satans, a genealogy that includes any number of tortured antiheroes and wounded scene stealers. Do not be surprised if Ryan Gosling gets an Oscar nomination. We have been enraptured by this character for centuries. He's us. The Paradise Lost framing goes through a few phases in Barbie, and this is where the magic of Gerwig and Baumbach's script really crackles to life. When we meet Barbie and Ken in their impossibly well-lit, pastel, perfect fantasy world, they strike us immediately as faithfully clueless and sincere riffs on Adam and Eve. But from the first dance number, you see those little notes of resentment in Ken, the yearning for Barbie and jealousy of all the other Kens. He clocks all of the little aggressions and snubs that no one else in Barbie Land seems to be even slightly aware of. In short, we meet him after he has eaten of the forbidden fruit. All of the other Kens live in blissful ignorance, but our Ken's eyes have been opened. The story proceeds from this perspective, and we start to see the world, and Barbie herself, from this resentful, jealous, silver medal point of view. Suddenly, it feels like Ken has become Milton Satan, and that Barbie is God. The jump to the real world explores this posture beautifully. Barbie is awestruck and disappointed by the world that she believes she has created. It's hard not to read those first clumsy interactions with humans as a confounded God finding out how his creations have used and abused their free will. Playing this reversal for comedy is always great, and Barbie collapsing on the park bench, realizing that her loving subjects actually hate her and blame her for all of their problems, is just delightful. It feels like something Marlowe might have done if it wouldn't have gotten him publicly executed. Meanwhile, Ken, as our aggrieved and resentful Satan, is sprinting through the brave new world and vacuuming up every bit of information that he can. Again, this is played for spectacular comedy, but it also painfully recreates Milton's conception of Satan as patient zero of inferiority complexes. There is an uneven, desperate scurrying to Ken's journey through the real world, in the way that he races back to Barbie Land to stage his coup. He's sneaky and messy, yielding to temptation and driven by an operatic sense of shame. Paradise Lost recedes for a while as the story explores the ramifications of this latest reversal. Ken dances in the end zone back in Barbie Land, but Barbie herself is still grappling with the real world and her ever-shrinking place in it. The flow of forbidden fruit is relentless and depressing, just as the harshness and cruelty of the world threatens to bury her, like a whole orchard of apples. The film pivots back to Milton for one last reframing. Barbie, our funhouse god, races through the Mattel building to escape her corporate overlords. That setup alone is a delightful flourish of modern commentary and almost Dickensian bit of theological bureaucracy. But during her escape, Barbie bumps into a nice woman who immediately gave me flashbacks to Stan Lee's pointed cameos in the Marvel movies. I knew this was going to be the big final reveal of the film, and sure enough, the woman returned at the very climax of the story in a blown-out, stark white scene that reminded me forcibly of the similarly heavenly King's Cross scene from the final Harry Potter film. She turns out to be Ruth Handler, the woman who created Barbie. Our surrogate god comes face to face with her creator, and so the film reverts both Barbie and our runaway Ken back to their lowly Adam and Eve status. Handler is magnanimous, charming, and inspirational in this scene, and so God retakes her throne, and Barbie Land is not just saved, but modernized. Adam and Eve grow from their experience and walk off into the sunset to lead more enlightened, complex, and independent lives. It appears to be a happy and empowering ending, championing that messy humanity that I so celebrate in Milton's Satan. But what about God? What are we to make of Ruth Handler's triumphant and merciful monologue in that last scene? I'm again drawn back to Stan Lee's cameos in the Marvel films, which always sent a strange shiver down my spine. It was nice to see him, I suppose, a little victory lap for a hard-working artist, but there was also something tyrannical about it. See also Taylor Sheridan's increasingly extended cameos in Yellowstone, where he spelunks into the story and grinds everything to a halt to play horsey time. The cutaway shots to the show's main characters during these interludes are wildly, hysterically uncomfortable, as they recite compliments to their boss that he wrote for himself. An all-powerful creator appearing alongside their creations is always an exercise in dominance. Even if it's only meant as an Easter egg, the creator towers over everything, to the point of breaking our suspension of disbelief. The veil of storytelling is lifted and rules of the universe are just barked out at you. The camera might as well spin around and show us the crew, the green screens, and the hand-wringing notes from Mattel about every possibly edgy joke. For me, this finale brought the film right back to the scene of Barbie running away from her corporate overlords. It reminded me that this game was rigged, that this story could only ever end on a note of good humor, and a reminder that Mattel was in on the joke, and actually one of the good guys. And then it hit me, the key to this uncomfortable dissonance. My favorite line of media criticism ever uttered from Professor David Wooten at the University of York. He described my beloved Dr. Faustus as, quote, a drama in which Orthodox Christian teaching triumphed, but in which Faustus has all the best lines. And that's the ballgame. Marlowe challenges and subverts Christianity throughout Faustus, but he knew that he had to end it with Christianity coming out on top. In turn, Gerwig and Baumbach challenge and subvert the true societal higher power of their time, late-stage capitalism, throughout Barbie. But from the moment you see that Mattel logo flash across the screen during the opening credits, you know who's going to win in the end. The final, glorious subversion in both of these stories is the artist's ability to make these obligatory victories feel hollow. Shakespeare did something similar when he beheaded the evil, nasty Macbeth and gave Malcolm the final word of the play, a boring and lifeless victory speech that tells us very clearly that nothing is going to change, and everyone in charge is a corrupt blowhard. It's that final note of ambiguity that leaves the audience in a place of discomfort, of uncertainty and analysis. It's an invitation for critical thought, a passing of the torch to the viewer. In the high-stakes game of big studio filmmaking and corporate profits, Gerwig and Baumbach pull off something genuine in this finale, an ending that you have to squint at, chew on, and pick apart on the way home. Let's wrap this up by returning to Milton. His Paradise Lost ends with Adam and Eve receiving a history lesson, crying, and leaving paradise together. The story dovetails back into Christian tradition and puts all the toys back in the box. But I would argue that the legacy of the poem is its dynamite, daring characterization of Satan. Similarly, and as much as I enjoy the way that Barbie undermines Mattel and the sanctity of intellectual property, as much as I love the commentary about how difficult it is to be a woman in the world, as much as I teared up about 3 different times through this movie, like I do at all of Greta Gerwig's movies, I believe that the film's greatest achievement is Ken. Ryan Gosling's performance is restless, ravenous, and crushingly vulnerable. Surrounded by so much artifice and masked aspiration, his Ken is blisteringly sincere. And the film's most glorious Trojan horse accomplishment is that it delivered such a pitch-perfect version of the Miltonian Satan to a mainstream audience that never would have come out for a 4-hour epic retelling of Paradise Lost. Instead, we've gotten one of the smartest and most subversive scripts of the year, rocketing its way towards $1 billion at the box office. Hail Barbie.